Check out how I made my foam Sonic the Hedgehog Green Hill Zone Diorama. It's made out of common craft supplies that, with the right tools, you can make yourself. It's filled with cool details like sand ballast and grass flocking to give it some fun, realistic details. It's the perfect set for displaying your collection or for playing out your favorite Sonic adventures. Let's go! I used some advanced tools here, but all the foam cutting can be done with a common box cutter. But I used a specialized hot wire foam cutter. Proxxon brand is the way to go, and don't opt out for cheaper knockoffs on this one. Believe me, I'll always tell you when it's time to cheap out on a product. This is not one of those times. This thing is like a table saw for foam. It cuts like butter. I also use this hand tool to make all these cool hills like in the games. But we also need scenery. I use these kebab sticks to create the stems of the flowers, and then cut up cheap craft foam into circles and triangles to create the petals. First, using some snippers, I clipped them to a reasonable length, before drawing the shapes with a pen and cutting them out of the green. Then with some acrylic paint, I get it all nice and green looking on the stem. I use some hot glue to glue it all together. Looks good from the front, and that's all we care about in this case. Then the flowers can stick neatly into the foam for stability. Now onto the loop. Sadly, I don't have the footage of my cutting out the individual layers, but as you can imagine, it was a bit of a puzzle to visualize exactly what shapes were needed to make the whole loop. I used the poker attachment of my hot wire cutter to carve shapes into the foam. Then I gave it a good sanding. I filled in the holes with some quick wood 2-part epoxy. I then used some Mod Podge mixed with paint to seal up the foam. I also tried out this modeling paste to try to fill in some of the thicker layers, but it didn't really make that much of a difference. It takes some time to dry really well, but it ends up nice and hard. Then I did a lot more sanding. I wanted to paint the checker pattern, so I made this template. Eventually I just switched to a square sponge instead of using these pieces of foam. But even that wasn't really enough. So using a mixture of glue and water, I applied sand ballast to those squares. I mix it about 50-50 so I can have a nice consistency. Then I painted everywhere that I wanted the stone to be. This is sand ballast. It's kind of usually for train tracks or just general sand in dioramas. I sprinkle it on the surface everywhere there's glue, and it sticks there pretty well. I do a lot of leftover and then I put it all back in once it's done. It's a messy process and kind of a hassle to get it all back together, but you definitely want to save the leftovers. Similar to the ballast, I applied grass flocking to all the running paths and the top of the platform itself. After the first pass of grass, I sprayed some of the mixture on top of it to help solidify the attachment. Then I added a few more bits of grass on top of that as well, just to make it a little bit thicker. It's always good to watch something while you're working. Check out my inspiration. That's some good inspiration. I then did all the same techniques for the hill pieces. They're just kind of background parts, but I think they go really well together and tie in the scene. You can place them in all kinds of different ways. I love setting up figures with this set. So many different places you can put the item boxes and the bounce pads and the spikes and different badniks. It's a really fun thing to do. But we still need trees. Basically, I used all the same techniques to carve out a trunk, sand it down, make it generally tree-shaped. This part's very freeform, basically looking at the picture of what it looks like, but also just trying to make it look natural and not like it was carved out of a block of foam. A little bit of sanding. And for the upper part of the tree, I don't know what it's called, but it's kind of how a palm tree has all the parts at the top. I just use my hot wire brush and then the needle attachment to draw in these little V shapes to get the same pattern as in the image. And then after cutting some leaves from the craft foam and painting it, the tree is done. My wife and I use this set all the time for backgrounds in our photography. This one she made specifically with Cream, and I made this one with Sonic and Mario. Eventually I plan to put it together just like my other dioramas in a more permanent place, but I haven't quite done that yet. If you like dioramas, check out some of these other videos on my channel where I go over how I made these shelf dioramas. And of course I've got a lot more Sonic content on the channel. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day.